Hey folks, what's up? Lex here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the PlayStation 5. Now, we already discussed the Xbox Series X, so I wanted to take some extended time to play around with the PlayStation 5, kind of see what exactly it does different, and what it does different from its predecessor in the PlayStation 4. Now we're going to get into games and the controller and all that kind of stuff soon, but I wanted to talk about the look of the system first and foremost. Now you're either going to be in the camp of look matters a lot because I display it in my living room and it matters, or you're going to be in the camp of, I don't care, I just want to know how it plays. So, disregard any of this if you're in that latter camp, but I want to say that this is one of the ugliest designs I have ever seen on a video game console. It's just hideous. I mean, if you stand it upright, it looks like this building in Dubai or something. If you lay it sideways, it kind of looks like an ice cream sandwich but reversed, or like a car hood. It just doesn't look good. Now, that's subjective, so maybe you like that kind of stuff, and maybe it does look good to you. But to me, from the moment I saw it, it was ugly. And when I got my hands on it and unboxed it, the side panels here, if you just turn it like this, it's not bad. But then you turn it like that, and it's just this weird curve and these sharp edges here. It just doesn't look good for whatever reason. And the way that you should probably display this, the way that they really intend for you to display it, is this way. But the problem is, when you go to put a disc in, it's like it's backwards. Because you take the disc out, your natural instinct is to turn your wrist inwards and put the disc in, but it's actually the other way that you have to put the disc in. That makes sense for when it's on its side, so I guess it's no different than the PS4 in that regard, but it's still just kind of weird because they obviously meant for this thing to be standing upright. The system does come with a stand to help you secure it whichever way you want to stand the system. It's got a method for laying sideways or a method for standing upright. The standing upright method really makes you screw the base in, whereas the sideways method, you just kind of clip it onto the back and lay it there. The base turns and everything. It's kind of weird. Wasn't very easy to understand at first, but I was able to get it, thankfully, with a guide online. Another thing about the design of this console is that it is massive. This thing is 15 inches tall, about 10 inches wide. It's humongous. It takes up a lot of space, so standing it upright, again, there's another benefit to that, but it's kind of an eyesore. I mean, it's half the height of my 55-inch TV in my living room. It's crazy. One of the biggest annoyances I had with the PlayStation 4 were the power and eject buttons. They were not buttons in the physical sense. They were sensory buttons, and I would always get confused as to which button was which, and I would accidentally hit those buttons. Well, thankfully on the PlayStation 5 they have physical buttons here on the front of the system, but the problem is they're very small. There are symbols above the buttons. There's an eject symbol and a power symbol, but they're the same color as the black here. What is the point? I mean, I get to make it blend in and make it seamless and everything, but it's just annoying because I still don't know which one is which. It's going to take a while to remember eject is on top, power is on bottom or whatever, or if you're laying it sideways, eject is on the right, power is on the left. Why can't they make this clear? Why does it have to be some secret? The Xbox Series X, you know that the Xbox logo is the power button, and the small button by the disc tray is the eject button. Why does it have to be so hard? So, now that you've heard the design complaints that I've had, you must think I really hate this system. I don't. So I'm going to put that out front right now, and I'm probably going to put something on the title of this video that's going to say that this is a wild card. And what I mean by wild card is that the PlayStation 5 is not the most powerful system between the Series X and this. It's not in my opinion, not the best looking. And, you know, there are other things that I'll talk about later on where I think the Xbox Series X actually is better than the PlayStation 5. But the PlayStation 5 feels newer. It feels like a new console. It feels like Sony actually made an effort to make this feel special. So with that comes changes that either hit with you or they don't. And some of the changes they've made, like I said, with the design, don't really hit with me. Some of the changes they've made to the interface don't really hit with me. At the same time, I still feel like this is new and fresh and exciting. As opposed with my Series X review, you can go check that out. I said that it feels like a minor upgrade, basically. It feels like the Xbox One X, just more powerful. So one of the things I do like about this console is the new controller, the DualSense Controller. It is ugly. I think it looks like an egg wearing like a tank top with spaghetti straps. I can't get that image out of my mind. But the controller itself is very weighty. It feels like a mix between the DualShock 4 and the Switch Pro controller. It's got some cool clear button designs. It's got the touchpad from the PS4, so every PS4 game can still work with it. It's got the options and share button still. It's got adaptive triggers, which kind of put tension into the trigger depending on what you're doing in the game. If you're pulling back a bow, it'll be a little harder to push down, or in NBA 2K21, which I'll talk about later. If you're running on the court and you're bumping into a player, it might be harder to push down the turbo button. And it's also got a mic button as well. And on the top here, they use USB-C like the Series X does now and the Switch Pro controller. So now all those controllers use USB-C, which I do like. And really, when you play with this controller, especially Astros Playroom, it really shows what this controller can do in terms of haptic feedback. When you're walking through sand, it feels like you're walking in sand. When it's raining, you can feel the raindrops. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. However, that stuff is cool in Astros Playroom, and I don't know how well it's going to translate to other games and longer experiences. Are you going to want haptic feedback for a 40-hour game? I don't know yet. Another annoying thing is that the PlayStation button is an actual PlayStation logo, which is cool from a look standpoint, from a design standpoint, very cool. But functionality, it's tough to press because it's not a round button. It's a weird shape. When you go to press it, oftentimes you'll miss. Oftentimes you'll hit the mic button instead, which is right below it. It's just annoying. It's kind of hard to believe that they tested this thoroughly and still did not recognize that that was way too annoying to put on there. But even with my complaints, it's a controller that's very comfortable to hold. It's unique. It feels new. It's got a nice soft plastic feel on it. The backs have grips, and I've heard that if you look at it with a microscope, they're actually the PlayStation symbols on there, which is pretty cool. The D-pad is serviceable, but slippery sometimes. I definitely like the Series X D-pad more, but at least this D-pad doesn't click every time you use it. The joysticks are similar to the PS4's. The good thing about this one is that the rubber is not shredding off the joystick like it was on the PS4. I had to replace probably like 3 DualShock 4 controllers because that rubber of those first wave of controllers they made was just garbage and shredding all the time. So it holds up there. Now let's talk about probably the most positive experience I've had with the PlayStation 5 so far, and that's Astros Playroom. This is a 3D platformer that was made to kind of showcase not only the PlayStation 5 and what it can do graphically, but mainly that DualSense controller. And I've got to say, like, this is a good game. This is a game that comes free with the system, and it is probably one of the better 3D platformers I've played. Now, it is a short game. It's really supposed to be kind of like a bite-size experience for that controller. I think maybe it's 7-8 hours if you really try to get everything in it. It's not really meant to be this full-fledged 15 to 20 hour experience, but nonetheless, it's still a lot of fun to play. And if this is the first thing you boot up with your PlayStation 5, you're going to have a very positive experience right out the gate. Using the triggers, like I said earlier, as a bow and arrow, and feeling the tension in that, blowing into the controller to spin a pinwheel and stuff like that, feeling the drops of rain and the sand beneath Astro's feet, just all that is really cool. Possibly my favorite thing was when Astro turns into a ball and you get to roll him with the trackpad, with the touchpad on the DualSense controller, and at one point it becomes like a pinball game, and it's very fun to play. One of the things I didn't like so much was when Astro becomes like a monkey and he tries to climb, and you have to tilt the controller and use motion control and stuff like that. That kind of shows the good and bad of such a gimmicky controller as the DualSense is. I don't think all the gimmicks work very well. I mean, they work, but I don't think they're all very fun to play. But probably the coolest thing about Astro's Playroom is what a love letter it is to PlayStation fans. You know, I grew up with the PlayStation. That was kind of my system I graduated to after the Super Nintendo. I decided to go with PlayStation over N64, and I got one in the winter of 1998, and just all the things in this game celebrate PlayStation from that PS1 time to all the way up to now, and the PS2 and the PS3 and the PS4 and etc. All the little gadgets, the Vita, the PlayStation Eye, the memory card for the PS1. It's just a very, very nostalgic trip for this really good 3D platformer on top of it. It's a very cool game, and PlayStation fans will get a big kick out of it as well. And in fact, out of everything that I've played, and I haven't played everything, that is probably the coolest thing about the PlayStation 5 so far is Astro's Playroom. Now, I do want to get into the fact that I did not play Spider-Man Miles Morales or Demon's Souls. And there's a big reason I did not do that, because I don't care for them. And maybe you're going to get some value out of this review because you don't care about those things either, maybe. You know, all the different PlayStation 5 reviews are talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales and Demon's Souls and how those are the two big games to play on this. Well, what if you're not interested in those? Is the PlayStation still worth it to you? What do you have to play if you're not playing those games? So I picked up the system and had no intention of picking up any new games for the PS5, but I ended up grabbing NBA 2K21, mainly because I had a $30 off coupon, and I was like, why not? I'll get something that is made for the system to play on the system. And when I say it's made for the system, it's not a completely new game. It feels like NBA 2K. And really, I've only had a chance to dive into the My Player portion of things, the My Career portion. And it's okay. It's pretty much what you expect from NBA 2K at this point. The story kind of forces you into a role, and you play through that role. It's got some great acting in it. It's got some great likenesses in it. The game really shines in these cutscenes, and that's all good. The game itself plays pretty well. I've noticed some things here and there, so it's definitely not perfect, but I have had fun with it, and I look forward to kind of diving into the My NBA section, which is the franchise mode, since they were able to get everything from the previous generation onto this generation, and diving into that, making a relocation team and all that good stuff. But just looking at the game, you go into replays and just look at some of the replays, man, it looks fantastic. And I love that they have all the old teams in there as well, you know, playing as the 80s Celtics and the 80s Pistons, and even back when I was a huge basketball fan, playing as the 2001 Sacramento Kings. That is a really nostalgic thing to kind of latch onto. So a lot of nostalgia so far with the PlayStation 5. Sticking with sports real quick, I checked out MLB The Show 20 just to kind of see how it would go from a launch PS4 to the PlayStation 5, because I skipped out on the PS4 Pro, so I went from 30 FPS, 1080p 30 FPS to 4K 60 FPS with MLB The Show, and you could definitely see the difference there. Everything is silky smooth, everything looks great, and I'll have to kind of jump back into my franchise mode and play a few more games of that. I also wanted to check out Fallout 4, because I checked out Fallout 4 on the Xbox Series X. I wanted to see if it loaded as quickly as the Series X, and it does not seem to load as quickly as the Series X. Now, that could be circumstances, right? That could be where I was, that could be what was on my character, was I in power armor, yes, that kind of thing. So it did take a few more seconds to load on the PlayStation 5 than it did on the Series X, but I don't know if that's a significant difference, if that's going to keep you away or not. And I also noticed that it seemed to me, at least, that the game didn't look quite as good as it did on the Series X. I felt like maybe the environment surrounding it just wasn't as clear, but it's hard to say with any certainty on that. Basically, you are going to see performance jumps. I went to downtown Boston to see if I could get it to stutter, and it was pretty on point. It held up really well. I went to Diamond City, everything was fine there, loaded in really quickly, so everything worked there. I checked out Days Gone because that actually had an update to bring it to 4K 60 FPS, and man, you could definitely tell the difference here. I loved Days Gone when it came out. I know that some reviewers are very lukewarm on it. Some hated it. I loved it. I played through it, even with the technical difficulties that it had. And the frame rate issues in that game at points were making the game almost unplayable. With this, not only do you get the 60 FPS, but the frame rate held up strong with everything that I went through, and I'm reminded of how good looking of a game this is and how fun it was to play. I've still got endgame content to do, so I look forward to running through it on the PlayStation 5. I also looked at Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, that didn't receive updates, but you can tell it looks beautiful as it did on the PlayStation 4. They did a great job with how this game looks and how they actually got it to look that good. It's a very interesting thing as well. But, it's just kind of one of those things where you pop it in, you're going to be able to play it. It's going to look just as good, if not better, than what you were used to. And you can go revisit those games if you missed them the first time around. So I wanted to try WWE 2K19 because this game is kind of notorious for how long it takes to load into a match, and really I didn't see the improvement that I was hoping for. I was hoping this thing was going to load in 7 seconds, but it was about double that for a one-on-one match. I also wanted to see how it did with multi-man matches as well, to see how the frame rate held up, and it looked like it did pretty well. One of the things that I did notice in this game is the lighting kind of looked weird at times, and I think that's a problem with the PlayStation 5 playing PlayStation 4 games, because I did notice that on some of the other games as well. When you got into certain spots or into certain lighting, there was some weird graphical issues going on there. It wasn't enough to be like, wow, this is really bad emulation or anything like that. It was just kind of the weird anomaly that would pop up that I never noticed when playing these games on the PlayStation 4. How about a PlayStation 4 game that is a remaster of a PlayStation 3 game? That is Valkyrie Chronicles Remastered. I checked that out. Everything looked good, it ran smoothly, it loaded quickly. Not a graphically intense game at all, but I did want to check out something that was originally a PS3 game and try it on the PlayStation 5, since the PlayStation 5 cannot natively play PlayStation 3 games. And you know, that is a big hindrance, I think. If they were able to get the PlayStation 3 games in there and the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 games, that would have been phenomenal. I think that would have put this system over the top if they were able to do that, but they didn't. Still great that you can play the PlayStation 4 games on this system, but yeah. Let's talk about the interface real quick. It's got some new things to it. It's got these cards that pop up that tell you, oh, you've got this much percentage on this trophy. Here, you can pop in and we'll, fast travel you to that area so you can go and work on that trophy. It's a cool idea for sure. I'm not a trophy guy myself. I don't really care about trophies. When they pop up, I'll say, oh, okay, what was that all about? But I'm not a trophy hunter or anything like that. But for those who are, this is going to be a pretty cool addition, just depending on what the developers do with it. You can also open up the card and look at game tips. So it's like a wiki almost, or a FAQ or whatever. You can go in there if you have PlayStation Plus, which I don't, so I didn't get to check it out fully, but it is an option there for you. And maybe it's the change thing going on here, but I just really didn't care for the interface changes they made here. It makes turning off a game or closing out of a game kind of more difficult. It makes turning off the system a little more difficult, just a little more annoying than it was on the PlayStation 4. And it's kind of hard to, be judgmental about that because it's a change. Eventually I'll get used to it, I'm sure, but I'm so used to the PlayStation 4 way of turning things off or closing out of games or saving a clip and editing it and uploading it and stuff like that, that these new changes are, kind of making me grit my teeth a little bit every time I have to do it. Other than that, the interface is very similar to the PlayStation 4, but it is different. And that's one of the things I think is tough about this review, is that the PlayStation 5 does things that annoys me. The design, I hate. The new interface is frustrating me. The fact that it's not backwards compatible with stuff, that's something I find annoying, but, oh well. But the things that annoy me are also the things that make it feel fresh and new and exciting. And if you're going to go out and spend $500 on a new system, and you have an Xbox One X, then this is the console to get. This is the console that's going to give you the newer experiences. This is the console that has a little more to play for it, that's exclusively for this system, or made for this system, or is highlighted by this system. Astros Playroom comes with the system. You don't have to buy it. And it's probably the best thing that I've played so far on the PlayStation 5. So it's kind of this thing where I don't think this is a knockout console. I don't think that it's genius, 100%, 10 out of 10, bravo Sony. But I do applaud them for trying something different with the PlayStation 5. A lot of it is similar. It's not like it's a completely new console here, that you're going to go from a PlayStation 4 to, an NES or a mobile phone or something like that. It feels like the next step up from the PlayStation 4, and I think that's a success if that's what they're going for. And of course, Spider-Man Miles Morales and Demon's Souls might be your thing, so add that on top of it. It just feels like this is a little more worth the asking price, even though down the line I think maybe the Series X will edge it out because it is the more powerful console. It is, in my opinion, the easier console to use. But as of right now, like, this is the exciting new thing, and I understand why people are clamoring for it. They're clamoring for both systems for sure, but this one, I kind of get it a little bit more than the Series X. Alright, I think we've gone long enough. Thank you so much for joining me on this review. Go check out my Series X review if you're interested in that. My time with these consoles has been a little weird. I've been going through some health issues I'm trying to get in line here, and so part of the time I was spending with these consoles, I was under the weather and not feeling great, and some of the annoyances I had with the consoles maybe kind of poked out a little further than they normally would. But all in all, the new console generation is here, but the most exciting part of the console generation is probably in the years to come, when we get those games that are tailor-made for these systems. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Give the video a like and share it around to help me out here. It would greatly be appreciated. And until next time, I'm Lex, signing off.